Chapter 30 is right around the corner, and there are a lot of possibilities open for what it's going to be, considering that we know it's going to be licensed. With that being said, in today's video, we're going to take a look at all of the possible killers that could make their way into the fog and rank them from least likely to most likely to join. Kings and queens, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and let's go ahead and jump on into the video. One of the frontrunners for a very long time has been Jason. Everybody has wanted Jason to come into the fog, as it would complete the Hall of Fame of Horror, as Dead by Daylight likes to call it. Jason is super iconic, and as Dead by Daylight mentioned themselves, always has a standing invitation to join the fog, and because of this, the community has really wanted Jason to come into the game. However, the reason why he is last on this list is because we recently did an interview with Matthew Cote where he freely spoke about the Jason licensing deal, and he basically confirmed that Jason wasn't going to make its way into the fog anytime soon. He said that it is a big legal quagmire, and even at that, if they had a small opportunity just to make it happen, they would take their shot. Considering that he's freely talking about it, and we know that he's on NDA, means that this is probably nowhere near the works. If there was a possibility that this could come into the fog, I think he would just say, I can't really speak about it, and that would have been that. But considering that he basically shut the entire idea down, makes me think that we're not going to see Jason coming anytime soon in the future. We also know that chapters take 9 to 12 months to be worked on, so we probably won't see this up until next year, October, if that's the case. Now, the reason I still incorporated Jason on this list is because Matthew Cote is quite clever. There's been a lot of things that he's mentioned in our interviews and just general things, and as he said himself, sometimes they lie. So there is a small, minute chance that maybe he tried to throw the community off, and this is something that we're really not going to expect. And the reason he freely spoke about it was maybe because the deal was already done and it's so close to coming out that something like this doesn't really hold a lot of significance. That being said, I still think that Jason is the least likely licensed character to join the fog, and maybe one day we'll see this open up, as we know that they're working with other companies right now. They basically are rebooting a show, they're rebooting a new game, and they also have collaborated with tons of other companies such as G Fuel. So chances are down the line we will get Jason coming into the fog, but it'll just be something that's sitting in the sidelines and waiting for its opportunity to come. Before we jump on into the next one, I want to quickly mention as well, we are live on Twitch right now. Twitch drops are going on, and as I mentioned, we're back to streaming as much as I possibly can. It would mean the world if you guys came on over. Throughout all my videos, I'm pretty much going to say this, so if you are tired of it, I do apologize, but I really want to get the community back on over to Twitch, and every day people come on out saying, hey, I didn't even know you stream, so I'm glad I'm here. So this is why I do it. Hopefully we'll see you guys there, twitch.tv/theking. every 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the weekdays. All right, let's talk about the next character. And that one is going to be, drumroll please, Chucky. And I won't make this one too long. Matthew Cote basically confirmed that this isn't going to happen as well, which is right next to Jason. He basically said that Chucky was a little bit too silly to join the fog. And he mentioned that, you know, maybe if the community really wants it, there might be a chance, but to them, they think it's too funny. I disagree with this. I think Chucky makes perfect sense to come into the game. I think what would really stop it is them figuring out what kind of power would work for this. I always used to tell my community that, hey, if Dead by Daylight got a big licensing deal, they'll find a way to make that power work. But hearing from Matthew Cote himself that, you know, the Alien DLC was delayed so long because they felt that they couldn't do it justice and really give Alien the limelight, makes me rethink the entire thing. So, Chucky coming into the game, I don't think it's going to be a high possibility. I think because the community keeps asking, there might be a very small chance, but I don't think we'll see Chucky coming in for maybe ever. All right, let's continue. I want to make a quick note as well that the next chapter that we're going to be getting, that is going to be licensed, that is confirmed by the way, is going to be a standalone deal, which means that we're only going to be seeing the killer coming into the game, not the survivor. So the next few picks are going to be based around that idea and that concept. And the next pick is one of the most fan favorites, Stranger Things. Now, this one is quite weird. I'm gonna have a whole dedicated documentary style video coming out probably this weekend if all goes good, talking about Stranger Things, but long story short, the folks over at Netflix decided to not re-sign the contract with Dead by Daylight because they wanted to make their own game. Because of that, we ended up losing the Stranger Things DLC in Dead by Daylight. With that being said, people have always speculated that the Stranger Things DLC will return one day into the fog. There's been a ton of leaks and rumors, and leaks I say in quotations because I've seen these leaks a very long time ago. I immediately was like, nope, this is fake. The entire community basically said they were real, and really, really high ranking leakers said that, yeah, this is real. Turns out that these things were more than likely fake, or whoever gave it to them, they pulled their leg. Nonetheless, taking this to the root of the argument, Vecna coming into the fog would make a lot of sense. It just adds up in every single aspect, and it being a standalone chapter makes sense too, considering we already have the Demogorgon, Steve, Nancy, etc. So they could just bring in licensed locked sets as these characters and only bring in Vecna as the new killer. With Stranger Things eventually making its return to Netflix with the new season after the writer's strike and everything is done, chances are we could see it coming into the game. But that's exactly how it sounds. It will take a while. I don't necessarily think that they have this chapter ready to go. And I think if they were going to get it ready to go, they would like to coordinate it some way, somehow, if possible, with Netflix to get as much hype for it the same way they've done when it originally released. However, there is still a small chance that after the previous season of Stranger Things came out, they got into contact with Netflix again and maybe renegotiated some things. The reason why this is so low on the list is because Matthew Cote in a previous interview basically said that he has tried to speaking to Netflix and he never really had an opportunity to do so. That was a few months ago that he did the interview, and as I mentioned, we know that these chapters take 9 to 12 months. So again, if they were working on this chapter, I feel like Matthew Cote wouldn't be able to freely speak on this, thus meaning we won't see this chapter anytime soon. However, there's still a small glimmer of hope, but it's pretty low on my list. Next on the list, because I kind of have to mention it without everybody getting their pitchforks, is FNAF. And the hype for FNAF right now has been the most hype I've seen in a very long time, and that is a big factor to do with the movie that is coming on out. And people are drawing the connections essentially, and they can actually see that, you know, Blumhouse worked on a movie for FNAF, and Dead by Daylight's also working with Blumhouse in order to make their own movie, so there's clearly a connection there. And to me, I mean, as Matthew Cote mentioned, again, I know I keep referencing him, but it gives us so much insight on how these things work. There's people in the community that know other people in the community that can easily get to each other, and if you do need to speak to somebody, it's not that hard. I think for us, why the hype is so real is because now we can visualize and then actually see the connection being made, whereas this connection was made a very, very, very long time ago. There's also some glimmers of hope for this because recently on a Reddit post, Dave Richard mentioned that never say never when it comes down to FNAF, and people really get their hopes up for it. I know everybody's been talking about FNAF for such a long time. There was a point where the Dead by Daylight Discord and Reddit had to ban people from even talking about it because it got so excessive. So it's always been one of those most hyped chapters to come into the game. However, the reason why I think personally that this isn't going to come into the game is because of all the controversy that surrounds FNAF. I think it would be a really, really bad PR disaster for Dead by Daylight, similar to the NFT fiasco, and we know how that went, where so much people are going to criticize them for bringing this into the game, while the other section will be super happy that they finally have something that they really like. I don't necessarily think that they would want to dip their toes in this. I think this would sacrifice a lot of their personal morals, and as much as people like to say behavior is money hungry, I really don't think that's the case. You know, they're a business, they have to stay afloat, they have to do what they need to do in order to make a profit and pay their employees and bring us something good, but I don't think they go to the extent of a company like EA or something like that. I'll literally charge you microtransactions out the ass. So That being said, I don't think they'll sacrifice their morals for money. I think they don't want to completely shut this down, and, you know, business is business at the end of the day. Maybe down the line they do something with this after this movie comes out, and maybe there's good publicity surrounding the FNAF title, but until that point, it's just more so like, yeah, maybe, but in their minds, it's realistically a no. You can clip this and maybe I'll eat my words in the future when a FNAF chapter does end up happening, but I think as of now, it is very unlikely to happen. However, if it were to make its way into the fog, it does make sense with the standalone chapter. You can just get one animatronic, and since we don't really have a main character, we do, but, you know, it still could make sense. Anyways, that's my theory on that one. Let's carry on to the next, which is a little bit of a set. There's a few characters in here, and I call these, like, I don't know why, but I associate this with the legacy kind of characters, and these are the ones that have been so iconic for such a long time. And since, like, these type of videos have been created, everyone has mentioned these. Those are going to be Pennywise, the Nun, Candyman, etc. All of those that fall under that big blanket of things. And I think they're more likely than everything that we've mentioned before. However, they're still quite unlikely in the grand scheme of things for their own reasons. For example, Pennywise, we know that Stephen King is so particular when it comes down to what he's using, and he hates video game adaptations and whatever else people have been, you know, circulating online. So I don't think that that has a good shot of coming in. However, there still is a possibility. And it makes sense that if Pennywise were to come into the game, it would be a standalone. The next one is the Nun. I remember making a video about the Nun years and years and years ago, and the video absolutely blew up. And I don't want to take all the credit, but I got to take a little bit of credit because I was watching the Conjuring series at the time, and all of the details of their teasers kind of lined up. I remember devs coming into my chat and saying, how on earth did you manage to connect those dots? However, since that point, people really seem to enjoy this concept and theory, and it kind of spewed into what we have it today. And even in polls that Dead by Daylight put out, we see that the Nun has a shot of making its way into the fog. We know that Matthew Cote recently in our interviews talked about people that maybe are no longer alive to come in as survivors into the game. That could be a hint for Ed and Lorraine. Who knows? I still think that this is one of those chapters that is still quite unlikely to happen, but still more feasible and possible than some of the other things we've mentioned because of whatever else problems they have. The final one being Candyman. I think Candyman is definitely past its hype now. Candyman, in my opinion, isn't as popular as a Jason. I guess that's just more factual, actually. So getting a chapter like this, you really have to see, like, is it worth it? Will people really enjoy this? While there is a small amount of the community that really want Candyman, majority of the community, do they really want it? And those are the questions that you need to ask yourself. And I do think that if we get Candyman, chances are we are going to get Survivor with this chapter. So again, I think this one is quite unlikely, which takes us to the most likely candidate to come into the fog. And I think everyone kind of knew this was coming, and that's Predator coming into DBD. We know that Dead by Daylight, they say they have a good relationship with Netflix. While Netflix might be strict, they still are willing to work with them, and it seems that they're going quite well. The biggest thing about this is that the alien skin that we received was the Grid Alien, which is a direct correlation to the Alien vs. Predator movie, which means that we're more than likely going to see at some point in time the Predator coming into DBD because they're in the same universe, essentially. They're in the same world. So it just makes a lot of sense. Especially since, you know, the way they phrase this and mention this, that they have two big licenses coming and they're putting them back to back, essentially. It makes a lot of sense that it's going to be Alien and Predator coming in, and then they can have their whole, like, event or something that happens. I don't really know. It just makes a lot of sense. I don't think there's a lot of people that can necessarily debunk this in any way. Sure, you can pull some straws here and there, but overall, I think that Predator makes the most sense to make its way into the fog, and I think that truly is the next chapter that we're going to see. I would love if there was a curveball and we received something that we just didn't expect coming out of the woodworks. I don't know, like a Evil Within chapter or something like that, but again, I don't really see that happening, especially since we know that this chapter is going to be standalone. That being said, that is pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. Those are all of the licensed characters that I personally think have the potential to make their way into the fog, and ranking them from least to most likely. I'm almost 95% sure that one of the characters that we mentioned on today's video will be making its way into the fog, and as early as Friday, we might be finding out who that character is. I'm super excited. We're gonna make tons of videos talking about it when it's officially released, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what it is, but I am excited. That's pretty much going to do it for this video, though. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe for some more awesome Dead by Daylight content. Don't forget, we are live on Twitch as well. Hopefully, we'll see you guys there. And as always, I'm the King. I tip my crown to you guys, and we'll see you in the fog.